Welcome to the Intrazone Roadmap Pit Stop June 2022 edition. This is a bonus monthly show that answers that burning question in your mind. What's rolling out now for SharePoint and related technology in Microsoft 365? I'm Mark Cashman, Senior Product Manager on the Microsoft 365 marketing team, here to help set the ongoing record straight. This month, I talk with Adam Ford, Principal Design Manager on the SharePoint team, focused on improving the user experience and visual comprehension of SharePoint and OneDrive. We hear from Adam about design principles in the 2022 modern era and deep dive into two recent page investments of vertical column reflow across devices and how SharePoint pages evolve as tabs in Teams. Beyond the breadth of page design updates, we'll focus on everything that landed this month, a few related items, and always the fun teasers looking into next month. Okay, it's time to kick back and get informed about all the tech that rolled out with Pride in June 2022. First up, to celebrate Pride Month, June 2022, the SharePoint team delivered a new LGBTQ Employee Resource Group site template. And it's now a part of the public lookbook if you go to lookbook.microsoft.com. Across the globe, we see the celebration of wonderful cultural moments in living up to our mission statement to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. We here at Microsoft provide solutions to empower organizations to celebrate these cultural moments with their employees throughout the year. Over the coming months, we are introducing numerous diversity and inclusion D&I culture site templates. Our first one celebrates Pride Month and Pride activities throughout the year. There is a lot of content and structure that appears by default to save you time, and all can be further customized to meet the needs, the unique needs of your organization. You'll see once you deploy the site from the lookbook, you'll find that you have a home page filled with inspiration to make the site your own, a unique page template so you can create news and pages quickly and efficiently. There's a pre-populated news web part to show you what it looks like for when you populate it with your own news. And there's a pre-populated events web part with real related events and, of course, ready to add your own. I deployed this site template from the lookbook into one of the demo tenants that I used, and I appreciate that there's even a really nice default mission statement that appears right on the home page. And the short of it is fostering career development, advancing equality, celebrating diversity. And it also has this really beautiful Pride-enhanced Contoso logo, of course, of which you may get inspiration to design your logo just the same for your intranet. Truly is a well-designed site that exemplifies that mission statement, and we hope that you put it into use in your own intranet. Next up, Viva Topics in Microsoft Teams chat. You can share your knowledge with a simple hashtag right there in your chats. Viva Topics in Teams allows people to mention topics in their chat conversations so that others in the conversation can easily learn more about a topic by hovering over the topic name and viewing the topic card, and more importantly, returning immediately back to the chat at hand. Note, you do have to have a Viva Topics license to do this. Mention topics by typing the hashtag character, the £, and choosing a topic from the topic picker, which refines as you type ahead. Once a topic is selected, users can post the message. The hashtagged topic becomes active once you send your message or once you reply. Recipients with Viva Topic licenses will see the selected topic's name as highlighted text and will be able to hover over it to dive into the details of that topic. Things like alternate names for the topic, descriptions, associated people and resources like documents, sites, and more. And again, after consuming the card, get right back into the chat without losing context. There's a lot of great new information about this, and if you're seeing or using topics, you'll just love that they're appearing in more places. And if you haven't looked into what Viva Topics is, I encourage you to do so, especially now as it expands beyond SharePoint, where you will experience these various cards. Real powerful when you do it right in chat. Next up is with SharePoint, there's now inline playback of videos in the hero web part. Like Viva Topics, the focus here is to keep you in the flow of work, aka not taking you to a page to view the video or beyond the site that you're already engaged in. When you create a communication site, the hero web part is included on your page by default, and it's pre-populated with default content that you change, but it helps you focus on how you can showcase images, text, pages, links, documents, and videos. And to help keep that engagement with your content and communications, when someone clicks to play a video in the hero web part of that SharePoint site or page that you put it on, the video will now play inline. No launch out of your established context. Watch it right there in line, return, browse, and continue to scroll without interrupting that playback of the video as long as you stay on that page. I think that makes the hero web part even more heroic, especially in this burgeoning SharePoint power metadataverse. This is where I would ask Clippy or Cortana to cue the superhero music, to which they would tell me, now playing, Mark, playing poor mouth trumpet rendition of the John Williams Superman theme. That's right. We want you to feel heroic even as you're listening to this, to hope that you try out the hero web part with video content in it. You will be the hero of your intranet. Now let's talk about some SharePoint page improvements. There are 2 of them. I want to keep this pretty short because we'll soon chat with Adam Ford about the ongoing efforts to improve page designs, and we'll ask him about these features and what went behind them. First, you're going to see more control over the vertical section reflow experience. Currently, the vertical section in Pages goes to the bottom of the page when viewed on smaller screens. We're adding the ability for page authors to control this reflow and choose whether the vertical section goes to the top or the bottom of the screen when the screen is condensed to smaller sizes. Second, we're making more room for page editing when you're editing a SharePoint page in Microsoft Teams. Last year, we enabled the ability to author SharePoint pages directly in Teams. With this latest change, when editing the page, users will get a full screen experience, making it easier for users to edit their pages. Just expand the page, focus while you work, heck, maybe even whistle while you work. Whistle while you work on a SharePoint page in Microsoft Teams. And that's it. When you're done, you certainly can publish away, and that tab will be updated with a little bit more confidence and, of course, greater visibility when you're working on it. Let us end this employee engagement segment on a simple, important, and visible change. We have now updated the site logo management in SharePoint. We're centralizing the management of your site logo. To update or manage your site logo, you will now exclusively visit the header panel under the Change the Look settings. Site owners will be able to navigate to the header panel from the Change the Look settings and then scroll down to the bottom of the panel where you will see the site logo options where they're now located. Consolidation is often the root of less upheaval. Want to change the look of your site? Well, it's now even more so all in one place within the Change the Look panel. Now it's time to dig a little deeper behind the scenes, behind the design world of SharePoint. It is now time to chat with Adam Ford. Okay, let us pause now and pull back from listening to Mark about a lot of features and actually dig into a couple and get behind the scenes view, especially from a design perspective this time. And we've got with us now Adam Ford, who is a principal design manager on the OneDrive and SharePoint team. And I'm going to let him more introduce himself, but very pleased to have and welcome Adam to the show. Adam, welcome to the Intrazone.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, my name's Adam Ford. I've been a design manager currently for SharePoint sites and pages. Been at Microsoft since 2013, and my team focuses on everything SharePoint sites and pages. So that's from the core authoring experience, how you author a page, to the web parts you put on the page, what those look like and how you interact with them, how you configure them, and then taking a couple steps up from that, sites. So the site's publishing flows, site features like scheduling and audience targeting. So basically kind of everything to do with creating a site and creating pages and getting those to the right audience.
And if I feel like we did the work that you all do now, do it justice, is to go back in the Wayback Machine, just like maybe 6 or 7 years to the modern SharePoint launch, 2016, where there really was just an old way of doing publishing. It was very SharePoint first, SharePoint focused, meaning that if you knew SharePoint and were comfortable with it, then you could probably build out a page and you felt comfortable knowing what a web part was, and publishing was, kind of for a very few people. But I think this modern work design, especially in the last few years, but back till 2016, has truly brought SharePoint where it's a lot more accessible. It's a lot easier. Even if you've never done it the first time you do it, it's kind of self-guided and intuitive. Can you share what's top of mind now, but maybe even pepper in a little bit of history, that when we think of modern work design and how it plays into that SharePoint experience, what is it like now in 2022, and how is it informed from its past?
I think you've probably heard, and a lot of audiences heard, you used to joke that you had to have a SharePoint PhD to create a page before we worked on, the modern version of SharePoint. And even back then, the goal was to kind of move to a much more simple and intuitive interaction model in terms of creating sites and pages. And to think about, how do you make the experience you're seeing on the screen be the one that you're actually creating? It's that sort of WYSIWYG approach where, you don't necessarily need to write code to be able to create your page and, do, specific customizations that, your sort of average IW wouldn't know how to do. So trying to democratize it a bit more so those folks who want to, and their job it is to create, sites and intranets for their company can still do that and have the powerful tools they're looking for and the customization they're looking for, but to also, engage that set of users that want to create team sites to collaborate with their teams and to create news and to communicate via pages and to interact and see the progress that they're making on work that they're doing. And so that's informed kind of a lot of work that we're focusing on now. I think one of the big things that we're working on, I'll mention kind of two of them, and if we have time, dive into a third, but is really looking at how do we go from what we've created, over the last 6 years or so to how do we make it even more simple and intuitive and make it faster and easier to create and customize a site and make it look great and make it more on brand. So we've been spending a lot of time on those sort of micro interactions or the core surfaces that you would see as you're authoring a page, things like the toolbars and how do we make those not so overwhelming, looking at how you can add content first to your page. And, we're doing things like looking at how to create sections faster using templates and making those things where it's more about what your page looks like and the content you're adding versus thinking about sort of the structure and the layout before the content. And then the second thing we're spending a lot of time is on templates. So I think there's broad visibility to all the template work we've been doing, but we're looking at how do we really integrate that into some of the creation flows. So it's easier to create sites that have great starting points for different specific scenarios of things folks are trying to accomplish, whether that's managing a project or that's dealing and creating like a crisis management site. So things that it's easy to get going and you have like a great design example to start from, and it's more about plugging in your content and creating those customizations than having to start from scratch.
part of this episode is really to focus on what have we delivered in June. And in your area of expertise, it really is what have we done for pages to make it so that they work better, they look better, they're easier to work with. And there's two elements that we delivered in June that directly align with the work that you and your design team have done to improve those exact experiences. I'll name them very quickly, but I'd love it if you could give a little bit more flavor into what went behind getting the right design and delivering it, especially to a partner team like the Microsoft Teams team. The first one is better control of the vertical column reflow experience, more choice. Improving the user experience when a SharePoint page is added as a tab in Teams, especially in an edit mode. Can you just walk through a little bit of the kind of before and after and what went into designing what is now the new experience?
For sure. I think the reflow of the vertical column has been one of those items that we've had great customer feedback on for a while. And, we've tried to kind of get to it on our backlog, and I kind of finally made that dive to address it. And, in a lot of cases, the vertical column is used, especially on the home pages for more like personalized content. That's not like obviously a hard and fast rule because it's customizable. But oftentimes then there's a desire to like have that render as, in a location that makes the most sense for that site creator. And by default, we used to have that on the bottom when you're on smaller screen sizes. So, we did a work where there now is an option where you can decide to actually have that reflow on the top. And that just gives you a little bit more control over the position. It's a pretty simple solution. And there's probably a little bit further we could go with that for more sort of choices there. But we think it addresses most of the feedback and most of the concerns with a particular reflow of that column. And also gets you to kind of be able to, highlight or celebrate the content that's in that area. So if it's on, a little bit smaller device, maybe you're viewing it on a laptop and you're in Teams and you have, sort of the extra Teams Chrome, your content is still going to appear in the order that you want it to.
So you mentioned that page in Teams. There's always one of the biggest innovations, I think, from the modern SharePoint experience is just responsive design. And I think you've brought it, way into the future now compared to its past. But like you mentioned, with the reflow of the vertical column, whether it's on a small device or you move it into Teams where there's, a little bit more going on, so maybe you have a little less screen real estate. What's that other element when I move into something like an edit mode? There was a previous experience. It was a little bit even more limited with space when we get into the edit of a page. But can you explain a little bit of what we're doing around the UX of a SharePoint page in Teams, especially, to improve knowing that there's that limited real estate?
Yeah, so we've worked on a feature where when you create a page and you're editing it in Teams, we automatically take you into a full screen mode. So that you still have the outer Teams Chrome. So if you need to navigate, to your chat or your channels, you'll still be able to do that. But it gives you a lot more focus area and real estate to configure your page, especially as you're potentially adding web parts to the page and you're interacting with the web part property pane. You sort of have the maximum real estate that we can offer you in that mode. And of course, you can still sort of collapse it down just like you can when you're outside of Teams. But it sort of is more of that focused, authoring mode where, you can focus on what you're creating. And then, once you're done making edits or creating your page, you basically can get the full real estate.
I really like because in Teams, there's a native control that's expand tab. Any tab, whether it's a document, a list, a page, some of the native controls in Teams. It really is, like you said, it expands where you're still in Teams. You can still see that you're in Teams, but you get a little more left to right. And by design, when you go and click in the edit, if you have edit permissions on a page, it sort of does that expansion for you. Is that right to understand?
Yeah, that's correct. And, I think that's sort of like, it's a little bit saving a step for folks, right? Like you're not locked in that mode if you rather see it, or maybe you're working on a really large screen and it's not a factor. But, I think it's really important for us to keep that context. We've heard a lot of customer feedback that like they want to have it be, more optimized and easier to edit pages in Teams, especially on smaller devices as, people are, more in a hybrid work environment and they're on laptops and they're on the go, maybe more so than we all were, even, there's more remote work going on during COVID. But yeah, so, and then, if you're spending a lot of your time in Teams, you're doing a lot of that work and you want to write a news post or you want to make an edit to a page, it just makes it all that much easier to do that. You have to switch context out, to the browser to edit your page.
I mean, it's really nice that it saves a little time when you click one button, it does multiple things, but it also takes into consideration, really onto the basis of both of these new features, what are your preferences? Where do you want to put something or how do you want to work? And there really are options that I think get back to what you were mentioning, kind of behind that laughter of people want a little bit more control, and some of it's incremental to be able to give them a way to design the experience that they want to deliver, or again, a workspace that, enables them to work the way that they want to. I want to kind of change tact a little bit, and if I could pick your brain on behalf of the audience to kind of learn what we can expect next. This is not a time to disclose any specific features, but there's a lot of design practice and principles on the SharePoint team at Microsoft, and of course in the industry when we think of cloud-based apps and services. Is there any little nuggets or ways that you would position the kind of top of mind of how we think about what's coming in the future, or how we might be thinking about, doing things similar to what we've been delivering, but even more so as we go forward?
Yeah, I think we're seeing kind of a trend and a growing expectation, that apps, and this is like outside of, SharePoint as well, like the apps that we interact with, apps that creators use, are powerfully simple. You can do a lot, but it doesn't take necessarily a lot of time. You've got that customization and the ability to do that. But, it's focused on like what we know about your content, what you're trying to create, sort of the message you're getting across. So how we can leverage some sort of intelligent features to help you create content that is compelling. And I think, outside of enterprise, some of this is driven by, everyone has heard of like the creator economy, right? And not necessarily the creator economy in terms of the monetization, but sort of the expectation that people have around the tools they're using to produce that content. So there's a lot of companies that are building, what they're calling creator studios. And, then there's platforms like Substack where basically you can like create and monetize a newsletter, and that the UX and experience for these things, are very focused, but they're also very fast and very powerful. So I think that's something we've been really looking at, like how do we bring that into the enterprise? And while you might not be necessarily like, trying to monetize anything in your enterprise, you're still trying to communicate. You're trying to get your perspective across. Potentially you're trying to communicate an update on a project that you're working on and you want to get feedback on it. So it's looking at how do we build our tools in a way where, you can create a message that's powerful and it's easy and fast and simple to do that.
I really like that concept of, there's a lot of AI and intelligence throughout the service, and to take advantage of that to kind of give a nod to, it looks like you're trying to do this, or, you might want to put it in that, certain format. And, I don't know quite what it looks like in the end, but, 2 columns maybe instead of 3, or whatever the outcome is. And you just gave me an idea. Maybe I'm going to try to monetize an internal newsletter for all things SharePoint here at Microsoft. I bet I could start a new subscription model or something like that.
Yeah, totally. And I think some of the things related to that we're looking at is, how do you, if you have certain content you've been interacting with in M365, you had a presentation you just gave as an example, and now you're creating a page or you're creating a news post, and we might not necessarily know right away what you're creating, right? But if we're suggesting and bringing up content that you can add to that page and you can just drag and drop and place it, is a little bit of shift of what we're doing currently, where it's much more about what web part do I want first, and then what content do I want. So instead of like having more of a layout and web part centric approach to authoring. We've been doing lots of thinking about how do we make it more, content first. So it's more focused on the message you have to convey. That could still be a page on the site, not necessarily a web, a news post. And then the content that you want to include with that, if that's, images or files.
So it sounds like the future is bright with a little AI and a little content recommendation, and certainly the foundation of already a great design platform and also content services that are powering a lot through Microsoft 365. So it doesn't surprise me that you're tapping into that.
Yeah, that's right. We definitely are looking at combining. How do we combine all those things together, right? So you can spend more time thinking about the message you want to convey, the content you want to add to your page, and sort of less about sort of the building blocks and, the details that, we can help take care of either through, great templates or, AI-powered suggestions. So you can, kind of focus on really, how do you have the most impact with the sites and pages you're creating, and how do you get those sites and pages to have the usage you're looking for, or how do you get your news post to the right audience and get the right type of engagement?
I think it's great. And I know that of all the features that I use, to publish internally pages about announcements or different events that are coming up, or just, being able to provide feedback on comments or share pages really easily, it really is that easy. And I'll even say out loud, my favorite feature is to use an existing page as a template for my next page, because I've already done a lot of the layout once, and on a recurring basis, I've kind of got my own private template, which I think is just the right way to make our offerings, and for those things that are going to be used by, more than Mark, but the whole company, to templatize those and bring those through as, easy to create designs that then everybody can take advantage of. I think there's a lot of room for people to take advantage of saving time and a lot of consistency as well. So I want to thank you for your time, and to everything I just said in terms of how I use our technology, but that you enable. I thank you for doing that, because it makes my job a lot easier for internal communications. But thank you for your time on the Intrazone. And again, thanks to you and your team for the design work to bring SharePoint into the modern era.
Great. Thanks, Mark.
I know the modern fate and adoption of SharePoint and related technology would be much less without the focus on design and user experience that Adam and his team do to work with and influence the product teams. True that, says SharePoint Server 2003. True that indeed. Thankfully, there have been many lessons learned and many lessons applied. Let us move into teamwork. When you're using SharePoint and related technology amongst your peers, or working with your manager, or working externally with a small team on a project or a campaign. The first item is that we're streamlining the SharePoint multilingual user interface when editing team sites. This new release includes other improvements to the navigation and site title editing experience for users whose preferred language differs from the site's default language. Think of this update as improved guidance and readability when taking advantage of the multilingual feature across communication sites and now team sites. Here's a summary of the changes. Additional language information is provided when editors make changes to navigational labels, site descriptions, footers, and the site's name. The new language information will display even if multilingual settings have not been enabled for the site. When editors change site content that is not in their preferred language, it will modify the label instead of creating a translation. There's additional information that can be found in tooltips next to the content that's being edited to confirm the language. And translations for site content can only be created when multilingual settings have been enabled. There's a lot more information on taking advantage of multilingual all up. And it's important to know that as you're working and editing in team sites, those benefits now apply and are visible. Next, let's move into the realm of OneDrive. You can now rename Add to OneDrive shortcuts in OneDrive for the web interface. People will be able to now rename a shortcut within their OneDrive. You can rename the shortcut by selecting it and clicking the rename command in the command bar on the context menu. When you rename the shortcut, the name will only be reflected for the shortcut as opposed to the shortcut's source. So it's really for you to keep track of how you want to list something, or if you have multiple folders that have a similar or the same name, you can associate in how you view them so that when you click on it, you know what you're clicking on. The shortcut's new name will be updated across all of your endpoints where the product is shown. And if we stay with OneDrive, working to improve how you organize and access what you need in OneDrive, this past month we added pin and unpin shared libraries for quick access, and that's where you'll find it within that quick access section. This is one that you can thank Adam and his team as they worked with the OneDrive team to improve how you manage the list of places you've recently accessed or opened a file from. You can pin these places so you can easily and predictably get back to what you were working on. Just think about it as pin, pin, pin for the win, win, win. It's a super, really nice, easy feature, and it's really nice, especially when you're working on a specific project, to be able to pin that library where all of that important content is, and then unpin it when you're no longer focusing on that project. Next, planner cards will now appear within the SharePoint team site activity feed. When a team member assigns a task to you within a plan beyond the planner user interface, a card will show up on your site activity feed if you're within 2 days of the due date. That's pretty timely tasks visible right when you need them. Or as Hannibal Smith might say, I love it when a plan comes together in the SharePoint activity feed. I think A-team references never get old, or is it that the A-team reference never ceases to expose how old I am? Either way, you are going to love it when a plan comes together. Last, since we're talking about plans coming together, let's talk about planning. Specifically to highlight the new SharePoint 2013 Workflows Migration Assessment Tool. The SharePoint 2013 Workflows platform was introduced 10 years ago. And since then, Microsoft has evolved workflow orchestration to not only encompass SharePoint, but all the productivity services you use within Microsoft 365 and extend to third parties. Today, Power Automate is the Microsoft solution for workflow orchestration, and it connects with all Microsoft 365 services and over 220 external services to let you build custom workflows in a more robust, modern way. To help those in need of transition, we've developed a new open source Microsoft 365 assessment tool available to help you identify and evaluate your existing use of SharePoint 2013 workflows within your tenant. And then you can generate a Power BI report to help plan your migration of 2013 workflows to a modern workflow orchestration service, that is Power Automate. Over time, it's our goal to minimize the reliance on older workflow technology, as you've seen us do for SharePoint 2010 workflows, and now for remaining SharePoint 2013 workflows. There's a lot of great documentation to review. The tool is fairly straightforward in how to use, to leverage, to get that great visibility into your workflow landscape. And we hope that you think about and plan for how you move to the more modern way of doing workflow in the cloud within Microsoft 365. All right, it's that fun time to broaden the scope just a little bit to related technology. And the first one's kind of a fun one, and it's probably something you've heard about, but whether you've used it or not, or found the reason why to use it, I want to encourage you to at least try it. And that is Teams Chat with Self. Talk to yourself on purpose with a purpose. And I think that purpose being now that people can use Teams Chat with themselves. It's all the same chat functionality that works when chatting with others, and it'll now work for you, or think of it as individuals chatting with themselves. They will be able to start a chat with themselves by typing their full name in the To field when creating a new chat. And then once you've started it, pin that to the top of your chat and chat with yourself anytime you wish. And as our community loop expert, Daryl Webster, put it, quote, you will be able to create a Microsoft loop on your own. You can use the loop for personal notes or prepare a loop for collaboration with a group, then share the loop link in the group chat, end quote. Pretty cool observations, Daryl. I will definitely try a little loop with myself when that becomes available. Thanks for looping us all in on that one on Twitter. Also, don't make the mistake of just chatting hello and nothing else with yourself. You don't want to assert that dreadful just hello feeling with yourself. And if for some crazy reason you just hello yourself, reply back to yourself with the aka.ms/nohello link. That's right. No hello to self. Don't do it. Don't do it. Have a conversation and add that context that we all really hope happens in that first chat, even when we chat with ourselves. This next one is for Outlook on the web. You're going to see inline suggestions from Viva Insights appear while composing an email or a meeting invitation. Inline suggestions in Outlook are brief data and AI-driven notifications that appear in Outlook while you're reading or composing an email or meeting invitation. These are inline, useful suggestions, tips, and best practices around managing emails and organizing meetings to help you reclaim focus hours and build better collaboration habits. So be on the lookout for Outlook on the web suggestions that will help you do things like delay delivery to help schedule email delivery aligned with the working hours of the recipients that are in their respective time zones, or remind you of any outstanding tasks, or to plan your time away with a checklist to reduce the stress of planning for time away from work, or shorten a meeting to build some buffer time and save attendees time. We can learn a lot more about how to better manage and better email and set up meetings, and why not learn from Outlook thanks to the recent integration with Viva Insights. Our last related item is one that's close to home for the Intrazone. Class Action is a new podcast offering focusing on the trials, literally, and tribulations of what it's like to be ready and get ready for litigation through the world of mock trial competitions. I'm pleased to share this new show. It's hosted by Katie Fang from MSNBC and is produced by our very own Intrazone producer, Lisa Gray, and her co-creator, Kevin Huffman. Class Action is a new immersive documentary show about the next generation of lawyers disentangling the complexities of American law. Throughout this 12-part series, you'll track a diverse cast of outstanding law students who are battling out in mock trial competitions across the country. I've listened to a first of the few episodes, and I am hooked on hearing behind the scenes of what makes trial lawyers tick. They go through a lot, and a lot of the people that they work with are very encouraging. Beyond law, there's a lot of great lessons to be learned from a lot of what the coaches share. I wanted to especially note the value of fair representation, showing that a prepared lawyer is one that everyone can count on. There's a lot that goes into being prepared, and the value is truly that by law, you get really good representation, and it's really interesting to hear not only how they think about it, but how they go about it. So check out Class Action, go behind the scenes with St. Mary's University, Dillard University, Brooklyn Law School, and the University of South Dakota into the depths of law to understand mock trial, law school, the lawyer life, and of course, equal justice. Go to classactionpod.com and you'll find there's lots of ways to describe to your preferred podcast player. So check it out, classactionpod.com. All right, it is time for the teasers. Let's schedule time with a decently informed soothsayer, one that predicts and draws the future with high certainty as he peers over the shoulders of those getting ready to ship very soon. In fact, next month. So let us focus on the future that's just around the corner of our calendars. Here are 2 teasers for what's coming up in July 2022. Teaser number 1, create Power Automate flows from built-in Microsoft list templates. That's right, templates now carry through with Power Automate flows, and right there at the point of creation, you're going to be prompted to also create the flow as you wish. Teaser number 2, Microsoft Lists commenting via the iOS version of the mobile application. When you're on the go, you don't want to miss out, especially when you want to add a comment or reply to somebody that has mentioned you. That's it with this month's prophesizing. We'll share more details and other updates within the SharePoint Roadmap Pit Stop July 2022 edition next month. We've added learn more links per feature, plus a list of important resources in the show notes and in the corresponding blog post on the Microsoft Tech community published to the SharePoint community blog. I hope you enjoy this roadmap pit stop. You can now pump the brakes. It's time to relax knowing that you are all caught up. If anything still leaves you scratching your head, open questions or concerns, please send us your thoughts and comments to theintrazone@microsoft.com. We're here to put our and your best change management foot forward. This is Mark Cashman saying always wear hats and sunscreen on the roadmap ahead.